Guys, what made you realize this girl is definitely not into me? Me and this girl at work used to talk a lot. I ended up catching major feelings for her because she was honestly an amazing person. She was a single mother, raising her son by herself. Her boyfriend left her because she wouldn't have a termination. He then slept with her two best friends and got one pregnant. This girl didn't give up though. She got a job. I worked there too, and that's how I met her. She was a full-time student. She was pursuing nursing and was in a full-time internship. She had an amazing personality, smile, and glow about her that far exceeded her physical looks. She was very attractive. She didn't know I liked her, but rumors quickly spread around the store, so I decided to tell her. She immediately removed me from her life. We would make up, then stop talking, make up, then start talking, over and over. This entire occurrence happened over the course of a few months. I admittedly was extremely hurt and angry because I had a nice guy mentality. I'd been thinking this way for years, that my actions warranted a girl's response. Now, I was never a simp, so to speak. I just didn't understand how girls would choose garbage guys, complain about it, and then do it again. Nonetheless, she broke the cycle for me. One day I was working on the floor. I was a manager, and the manager at this particular restaurant is usually in the middle of the floor where we can see and be a part of everything. I'm standing directly in front of the kitchen window. She's on the grill and starts talking loudly to the girl next to her. She's obviously trying to be heard. Everyone heard her. She's talking about how she's talking to this new dude, how she's so head over heels into this guy. I decided to walk away and be productive. I was sweeping the floor when she walked behind me and started showing pictures to the girls there. I assumed she was simply trying to hurt me. I'm not innocent myself because we were malicious towards each other at this point. But from that moment on, I was done giving other people control over me. If you like me, let's do it. If you don't, whatever. I'm not crying over a rejection. I'm not allowing myself to feel entitled or anything. Girls have a right to accept or reject anyone. I may have gone too far in the other direction because I now remove a lot of people. I still believe she is an amazing person. I really want the best for her to this day, regardless of if she likes me or not. She doesn't even talk to me, but I've genuinely prayed for her and her son. I believe she was hurt and was going through a lot. So I can understand her pain and how she was handling it at the time. But I'm moving on and letting it go. One of the best things to ever happen to me. Next time, maybe just stick to the how's the weather small talk. Seems safer than diving into the how's your love life deep end. Story 2. Can I have time to think about it? Then nothing. Radio silence for like a month. Next time we talked, it's as if that moment never happened. I've had every rejection under the sun used on me. Laughter, straight up no, coming up with an excuse halfway through the date to leave, being ghosted. It's not you, it's me, etc. One even claimed that she liked me, but her parents didn't approve of me, so nothing could happen. Only to find out later that her parents actually thought I was great and would repeatedly ask her about me. In that case, I think she just wanted intimacy and nothing more, which I should have seen from the start. But that one, can I have time to think about it? Damn. I'm over it now, but I'll never forget how much it hurt. Plot twist, she's still thinking about it to this day. Story 3. My roommate encouraged me to ask this girl out. He said she really liked me, so I asked her out and set a dinner date. I picked her up, and at dinner, she barely responds to me. I ask questions about her major, her family, etc., and all I get back are short answers and no follow-up. I'm frustrated and she's unhappy, and I guess we both look miserable when the waitress tells us that we need to perk up and be happy. She then asks us how long we've been dating. Her face falls when I tell her this is the first date. She goes, "Oh," and walks away and doesn't really talk to us again. After dinner, we were supposed to go to a friend's house who was having a party, but I looked at her in the car and said, "Look, obviously neither of us had a good time. Instead of going to the party, why don't I take you back to your dorm?" She said yeah, and that was it. I went back to my roommate furious and asked him why he thought she had a crush on me. He said he thought she would once she got to know me. Yeah, well, she didn't. Why did she even go on the date? I have no idea. Motives of my roommate? I had a pretty bad breakup a few years before, and I believe he was trying to help me out. When I came home and confronted him about it, he said what I posted above, making me realize he hadn't even talked to her. This, unfortunately, did happen. I can laugh at it now, but I was furious back then. This happened around 1991 or 1992. The waitress really did that to her, but it was good for me to hear that, yes, this is a horrible date and it's obvious to other people too. Time to stop your losses and go home. Story 4. She kept talking about how she needed more commitment from me. Relationship had turned long distance. I was paying for the travel and doing the majority of the traveling. I was the one that had moved away. Sustained it for about a year, but I just realized that she wasn't into me enough to take what she perceived as a risk in moving 5-hour drive away from her family. Never spoke about her needing to show commitment to me. I think what finally happened was when she got a raise similar to what I was making, and it brought up starting to contribute to the travel costs, and she laughed like it was a joke. I clarified it was serious, and she brushed it off. Nope, I'm out. Stuck around longer than I should have. It was her first serious relationship, which, in retrospect, I think was a big factor in some of the immaturity. Guess she thought risk was a board game, not a life choice involving a 5-hour drive. Story 5. Oh, snap. So last fall, I went to class and ran into this really cute girl, and I thought, hey, I'm going to try to talk to her more. And over the next 2 weeks, I found 0 openings until we were told to get into groups for a project. Small class, but I wasn't in a group, so I asked her if it would be cool if I joined her group, because they seemed more serious than my other group. Bunch of losers. She said yes. So it was me, her best friend, and another girl I talked to for a bit. We agreed to meet up on Friday at the library. We talked a bit more before then and became friends. She's really touchy, so she'd grab my arm, lean on me, etc. I thought she was into me. I showed up early and she was there alone, so we began to talk, and she's so much like me. Has a weird sense of humor, very smart and super friendly. She even liked Dragon Ball. That's the dream. Also, her favorite Spider-Man movies were the originals and not the Holland ones. Then the other 2 girls arrive and I see her phone, and her lock screen is of her best friend. The other girl comments, "Aw, your best friend's your lock screen?" And she says, "Nope, my girlfriend's my lock screen." So that really made me realize she totally wasn't interested in me at all. Funny thing is, we all are still really good friends. We've tried to take classes together, and she's helped me out when I had trouble. I accidentally ruined her surprise birthday party. We hung out while we could. She'd buy us lunch, invite us to her place, and we really have a good time together. Those 3 girls are the best friends I've made in university. It's kind of sad, but before I went like 6 months without anyone in college saying my name or even talking to me. They weren't mean. They were just not my friends. But I met these girls, and I have a friend network. I have a constant study group, and she's even helping me lose weight because I couldn't do it on my own. She wasn't into me, but I honestly couldn't care less. I'm way happier now than I was before I met her. Story 6. A close friend of several years, who I had a bit of a crush on, had been single for a while, as had I. One day she called me on the phone out of the blue and said, "I'm feeling hot. Want to drive up and meet up?" Why, yes, now that you mention it. Yes, I do. But she lived a 5-hour drive away, and I had to work. So I worked, then hopped into the car the next morning, drove up for a visit. We hugged, went straight to her bed, but I was getting less than a sense of full enthusiasm. Still, she seemed game. Then as we just began to start, she started crying. Now, here's a little hint to all you guys out there. If she starts to cry, she's not happy. So naturally, I put the brakes on and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And she's not into it. Yes, she's lonely, desperately lonely. But I'm a friend, not a potential lover. She likes me, but she's not into me that way. But here's the thing. She's still game to go through with it, because I drove 5 hours after all. No chance. She's not into it, then I'm not into it. We hugged, went out for dinner, and had a great time. I slept on her couch for the next few days of the visit. Curiously, on that same visit, she met up with a friend of hers, who I dated happily for 6 months until the 5-hour commute wore it down. She started crying. Guys, when she's crying, it's time to call it. Story 7. Oh man, so many points. Didn't attend my graduation, even though mine and hers was like 2 hours difference. I attended hers and her sister's graduation and got them flowers. I waited for her for 4 hours just so that I could hand a bouquet of flowers to her since before her sister's graduation. She told me she has never received flowers before, so I got it for her. She told me that night that it was an unforgettable memory. I posted an Insta story saying that it's my birthday and she didn't even bother to wish me. I attended her birthday party and wished her a happy birthday every year since I've known her. She sets up a date, I got all excited, and on the day itself, I reminded her in the morning saying I'm looking forward to the date. She replied with, "Oh no, it's today? I totally forgot about it." Not gonna lie, it totally broke my heart. Kept on calling me baby and just generally stringing me along. Only time she would initiate a text is if she needs help. I was in love with her for the past 4 years. Finally stopped all communications and face-to-face meetings. Never felt better in years. Sorry for the long rant. Story 8. So I went out on a date with this girl and she drove. The dinner did not go well as I was quite a bit older than her, and I kept going on and on about the Vietnam War, so she said we should leave as soon as she was done eating. We drove for a few minutes, and she told me that her trunk was open, and she pulled over and asked me to go out and close it. When I got out of the car, I realized that the trunk is not open, and then she drives away. This was before cell phones, so I had to walk for about an hour to get to the closest place, which was a gas station. I walked to the payphone. The guy was filling up his tank while smoking a cigarette. He must have fell in because the next thing I knew, there was a huge flash and I was flying through the air. I was completely dazed. There was a tremendous ringing in my ears and my body was shaking. At first, I was hurt so badly I thought I was passing away, but it was quickly stopped by all the bandages that my buddy George placed on me. Finally, our cap team called in a helicopter and drove him out from our village. What a plot twist. Jeez. Story 9. This happened 3 years ago, but still stings. Sorry for the cringe. Met this stunning girl through common friends. Ex-ballerina, perfect body, beautiful face. We were at a barbecue. We started talking and she kind of looked interested. All green flags. At the time, I was just out of my previous relationship and I was working out a lot. I was in very good shape. At the end of the night, with me being a bit hammered, I forgot to ask her number. I realized she looked kind of angry when we said goodbye and I don't ask to see her again. But it is what it is. One of the common friends close to her asked me about her in the meanwhile, and I'd clearly say I was into her and I couldn't wait to meet her again next time. Because of several coincidences, we didn't manage to meet again for a few months. In the meanwhile, stressed by heavy work and my studies, I was graduating while working a full-time job. I had stopped working out and put on some kilos. Next time we meet is at a birthday party of another of our common friends. She arrives late because of work issues. I greet her and she acts like we've never met before. She even introduces herself like it's the first time I see her. Flags start turning red at this point. A few minutes later, music starts and people start dancing. I was in a corner drinking wine and I saw her close friend talking to her and pointing at me. I don't understand what they say, because of music and also because they're both Russians, but I clearly hear my name. Her face turns horrified. I finish my drink, find an excuse, and leave. Story 10. Not a guy, but I got invited out by a coworker when I first started a new job. I thought we were going to meet up with a group of coworkers, including my future fiancé, to go watch a movie. I agreed because I thought that the guy I had a crush on, the future fiancé, was going to be there. But the guy who told me about it, I'm just going to make some points, looked like a cross between Dwight and Milton. He was an hour late picking me up, told me the movie was at a later time so he could take me to Barnes & Noble 30 minutes away. Decided to drive 30 minutes back to the original town we were in to get food. Made me pay for the 3 drinks he drank during the dinner when I was 20. Asked if I was this quiet in the first date. He told me there was no group of coworkers waiting for us and wasn't even planning on going to the movie. Cue me running to the bathroom and texting my friend to come get me. But he needed time, so I decided to stall. Went back to the table, where he starts going off about how the country's going bad and how he and his buddies have a plan when everything hits the fan. Well, this will give me a chance to stall and hopefully have a story on the off chance I don't get ended. The plan was to go to their bunker in Idaho for the potatoes and lax weapon laws. But Idaho was just a stopping point. The real plan was to get to either Russia or Australia, because that's where the most white people are. My friend had finally texted me saying he was waiting at a cafe down the road. I made an excuse that my friend needed me because she was freaking out about her wedding. I was the maid of honor, and that she needed to meet me at the cafe. So I noped out of there real quick. Ended up having to stress Wiz a panic away when I got to the cafe and then proceeded to tell my homie about that date and then going to go see the movie with him and his roommate, where I then told them the story of my night. When we got out of the theater, I ended up seeing a voicemail from my date. It was a bunch of apologies and him thinking I had a nice time. Story 11. This didn't happen to me but to my buddy, and it was absolutely soul-crushing to watch. That's a long story. Dave and Kat worked with me at a restaurant. We called Kat Crazy Cat because while she appeared normal, a few minutes of conversation easily revealed the roiling pit of crazy just under the surface. Dave was a classic quiet guy. He was a tall guy but very passive and easy to just sort of forget. He was hired as a server but didn't have the pep to interact with guests, so they made him a food prep or runner. I really liked him. He listened to obscure music, was chill AF, had terrible dance moves, etc. Super fun dude to just hang with. Kat started pursuing Dave. Nobody knew why because usually she's all about a man in a uniform or a man in a suit, or really any other guy who literally wore his social status. We all supported it though, because she was pretty hot and he had literally zero experience with women, so why not? They messed around for a couple of weeks, but he was too afraid to push it further. Then my best buddy, Jake, visited from his first year in the military. Some friends and I went to his mom's place to chill and were having a great time drinking and chatting. Dave was going to show up later. Well, fast forward 3 hours and we're all on the trampoline when literally out of nowhere, Jake and Kat are kissing. That also happened to be the exact moment Dave showed up. Kat didn't even acknowledge the poor dude. Just brutal, man. She was the worst. Dave never hung out with us again. Probably blamed me a little. Still feel bad about it. Story 12. We lived together in Boulder Creek as a couple. I was working hard hours every night for the railroad down in Watsonville, 29 miles away. My car wouldn't start one night after a long shift, and I called her to let her know what was going on. She just showed absolutely no concern. I got the most uncomfortable vibe in the phone, like it actually felt a lot like the title of this thread. This girl definitely doesn't care about me. So I told her, all right, well, I guess if I can't get it started, I'll just sleep in it or something. Cold night, no blankets or anything, and she just said, all right, good night. I called my ex-wife of 14 years, who I'm still very good friends with and always have been. She was 136 miles away in Fresno. I didn't want her to help me, I just needed to hear a voice that cared, as I was emotional from the last call. She had so much concern in her voice. Oh no, Jason, what do you need me to do? I said, nothing. I'll be alright. I just needed to say I'm a little bummed out. So she talked to me and I just felt at that moment like nobody's ever going to love me like this woman did. The ex-wife had no interest in getting back together with me. That wasn't what I was calling for, but she was my friend. She cared about me and I just needed to hear that in someone's voice right then. The ex is in a relationship with another guy and has been for years. I'm totally happy for them both. I feel like I'll probably be forever alone, but I'm totally fine with that. I don't want to feel that feeling again. This person doesn't even care about me. If I ever get into another relationship, it won't be until I know the other person actually cares. That Boulder Creek woman was an only child. I'm almost convinced they're a different breed. No offense to the only child people out there. I just feel like there's a less of a teamwork makes the dream work feeling in relationships with them. Huge generalization, probably not true. Just feels that way to me from the few I've dated. It's like they're not used to sharing. Sharing space, time, energy, etc. Story 13. It was both mine and her first real relationship, except she was 4 years older than me, and I just graduated from the college where I was starting as a freshman. I fell madly in love with her, and she was the same, but almost the entire relationship, 3 years, was long distance. We had a short 6-month period where we were within 20 minutes of each other. The rest of the time it was either a 4-hour trip or at some point a 7-hour flight. I was actually the one who asked for more commitment, or at least more equality in managing the distance aspects. I was always the one who would do the 4-hour drive or train while I was in school with no income, while she had a full-time job. It was usually at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. When we lived close to each other, I was the one who would always take the 20-minute train ride to see her and stay overnight 3 times a week. I slowly realized it was becoming detrimental to my social life. Not just the travel, but the Skyping and communication too. Like most of the aspects, the communication was lopsided. I was there for Skype dates and calls, but would sometimes wait hours for her to finish something with her family, which was going to be 5 minutes. A lot of the issues were from the close family relationship. There was one point where I wasn't sure if I'd see her for a year, and she lessened the week we were meant to spend together to a 3-day weekend, so she could go to the movies with her brother, whom she had been living with at home for a year and a half. I told her at one point, there's no way we could ever have a family of our own if you always put your family first. She completely understood but never changed. Her family was just too important to her. Our relationship just kind of petered out after that. I ended it kind of bad on my graduation day. I called her at 4 in the morning and asked her to not come down, which is ironic because her coming to visit was one of the biggest issues. I still feel bad about it because I did truly love her. The best part is a few months after I ended things, she finally moved away from home and started getting on with her life. I don't think it would have happened had we continued dating, though. Well, both of you were just in different paths in life. Anyways, if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 14. Met a girl online. First day we're getting food at Olive Garden. She pulled out her phone and blatantly took a picture of me. I asked her what she was doing. She said it's a game her and her friends play, but she wouldn't go into details. So we ordered food and I tried to talk to her, but she was just playing on her phone the whole time and didn't want to talk. Then she finally snapped and said, I'm only here because I was dared and wanted a free meal, so just shut up, okay? I excused myself to the bathroom, went to the front and explained the situation, paid for my meal and tipped, and returned to the table. No word said, and no, I did not pull out my phone to make it less awkward. I shut up for her and thought for a bit about what I would say. Food shows up and she's very confused because mine is packed to go. They even hooked a brother up with fresh breadsticks. I grabbed mine and started walking out. She says, "What the hell?" I told her, "If you want a free meal, you'll have to look elsewhere." And just walked out. I'm not a looker by any means, but I am human. I also am not going to get used on by some dumb woman either. I know she'll lie to her friends about what happened, but she'll always know what happened. Story 15. I kept seeing this girl walking around at my university. We had a course in common, but she dropped after a couple of months. She was exactly my type. Everything about her was perfect, and thanks to the attendance, I knew her name. When I saw her again after Christmas, I decided to text her via Facebook. We exchanged a couple of messages, and her last was on the line of, "I'm sorry, but not looking for anyone, and knowing you're into me, frankly, I don't even want you as a friend." I haven't been friend-zoned. Worse. That was the moment I realized she was not into me. Funny story is, I didn't give up. A year later, I slowed walked back into her life, and the year after that, we got together for more than 2 years. She then broke my heart in pieces and walked on them, so I should have really taken her advice at the beginning and moved on. Story 16. Alright, so here's the deets. I had this major hardcore crush on this super genuine and wonderful girl in middle school. Quite coincidentally, we had track and field together, so that's when I got to chat with her the most. I looked into the fan fiction she liked, watched some shows she was into, all that stuff because I figured, what the hell? It wouldn't hurt to see what she's into and possibly share more common interests. I remember she went on a vacation once and brought back these 2 Lego minifigures, still have them somewhere, that she found because she knew I was into Lego. It was really sweet of her to do. It's also important to note that this was at a time when not only was my mind getting messed up by puberty, but my mental illnesses such as bipolar and slight depression decided to make it a party. So keeping a high self-esteem was hard and keeping friends was harder. So overall, I thought things were going pretty smoothly and was really happy because for once, it seemed like someone was actually sticking around for me and also stuck around longer than most. Until the one dreaded day at track and field. Some kid, half serious, half jokingly, asked me and the girl, "Are you two in a relationship or something?" This, in hindsight, was a perfectly reasonable question, seeing as me and her hung out so much, but it didn't feel that way at the moment. Then the girl, without skipping a beat, said sternly, yet still shocked, "Good heavens, no." She turned to me and apologized, but still reaffirmed her statement. Now that being said, due to the fact that she apologized so sincerely and we still had a bit in common, I kinda got over it and we were friends until she left to go to another school. But man, that really hurt. Story 17. She invited me to a party. Pre-party, she told me the plan was to hit the party and hang out for however long, then go back to her place. I asked if it was cool for me to crash there, and she was like, "Yeah, but we will have to share a bed." I was like, "Let's go." Well, she drove us to the party, and she said she planned not to get too hammered. We got to the party and she started drinking. Less than an hour in, she was absolutely hammered and stumbled out the front door and rushed in the street in front of the house. My place was closer to the party than hers by like 20 miles, so I offered to take her home and she said nah. Another friend at the party would take her home. I was like, right on. Tried hard not to make her night any worse, but it sure went from a night where I was really excited to spend time with someone I liked to being at a party with a bunch of people I only knew casually. But I was pretty hurt, so I just drank real hard. I got hammered too. And the guy hosting the party helped me to bed in his garage or gaming room. He put on Buffy the Vampire Slayer after asking me if I needed ambient noise to sleep. He was a real bro about the whole thing, and it kind of showed me how people who are actually good people treat others, even if they aren't interested in them romantically. Ended up waking up to a very sweet text from a different girl and ended up learning a lot. Hell of a headache the next morning, though. Story 18. Disclosure, I think this woman thought she was into me, but her priorities were obviously off. So the divorced woman had children, as do I. That makes good date nights hard to find. So we end up with a day where I go to her place and she teaches me how to make sweet potato casserole. We start early enough so that I can take her out for dinner or something afterwards. This goes well, we have a good time, and the casserole looks great. You bake it the next day. Then she tells me she's going out dancing. Now, this is something we had already covered in depth, that I don't do country music and she was not inviting me. We both knew I would most likely decline if she did. Anyway, I stopped seeing her after that. If she cannot make the time for a real date, then she definitely wasn't into me. Now, some of you younger folks may be thinking, that sounds okay to me, but when you're in your 40s, have very few nights on your own that sync up with your dating partner. You will definitely make time for them if you really like them and are looking for something serious. Story 19. This is probably going to get buried, but anyway, when I was still a student in the university, I was heavily into this girl. We got along well and we were in the same classes too. We would even meet every day to go to class together. We had the same friends and even came from the same area back at home. So one night I had this whole thing set up. I went to a big rose garden on campus, stole all of them. I had to put them into a garbage bag and it got full. So many were there. Then I organized with a roommate to put them all over her room and bed. Then I had my friend who played guitar play a love song outside her window and me standing next to him singing my heart out. I even got a standing ovation from the rest of the girls in the building who looked out from their windows to see what was going on. Then I confessed my love to her and asked her on a date. Well, she ran out with a big smile towards me and then gave me a hug. We talked for a short while, she said goodnight and went back in. And there I stood with a big, what the hell look on my face. I guess it was never meant to be. Story 20. Had a coworker that I thought was pretty cute, but I rarely saw her since our shifts were wildly different. One of the first times we actually worked at the same time, my coworker told me to ask for her Snapchat by the end of the night, or he would do it himself. He claimed to be friends with the girl, but I learned after that he had never talked to her either. I walk over to her area and start chatting with her, and we actually had a decent conversation. I wanted to seem somewhat mysterious, so I asked for her Snapchat, and she said sure and typed it into my phone. I Snapchatted her later that night and didn't get a response until the next day. This pattern continued for a few days until she just left me on red. 4 weeks went by at work, and we didn't work together at all, so I figured she was just not interested. Well, one night we were closing together, and she walked over to my area on 3 separate occasions for reasons that people in her position would never have to do. We talked each of those times, and it seemed like she actually was interested. That night, she also apologized for leaving me on red for so long. I took all of these as signs and asked for her number, hoping that I could move things to the next level. I got her number and I asked her if she wanted to hang out. She said yes, and I figured that we should probably do something fun. So I brought up the art museum. She told me she was an artist and she hadn't gone in years. She said that sounded super fun, and our conversation continued on to the next day. The night before the date, I asked if she still wanted to go, to make sure she was serious. And no response. I texted her the next afternoon, hours before the date, and once again, no response. All of a sudden, it was the time we were supposed to go, and once again, there was nothing, and I was officially ghosted. This really just taught me that there are no such things as signs, and the only way you can really tell if someone is into you is if they straight up say it. Story 21. Back in my first year of undergrad, I sat next to this girl in my literature class all year. Kind of one of those friends by association because we chose to sit next to each other, and did so for the remainder of the year. Eventually, I started to be interested in this girl, so I decided to ask her out towards the end of the year. A bit of backstory before everything that happened. She had been having some memory issues which stemmed from these mini seizures she had been having. They essentially caused her to have short-term memory loss every once in a while. Anyway, I asked her out and we went on a date and we both had a great time, at least according to what we said at the end of the date. So I asked if I could take her out again, to which she replied enthusiastically. We set up a time and I was feeling good. The day of the date comes and I ask her if we're still good for that evening. However, this time she responds by saying how she forgot about a lab she had to do for another class that evening. I think it was for an astronomy class, so it had to be at night. I didn't care. Figured her memory issues made it hard to schedule things, so I was totally cool about it and no hard feelings. I just asked if she wanted to reschedule. No response. That week we had the final for our course, and after taking it, we were walking out together and I said something along the lines of, "Well, it's been nice getting to know you. Have a great summer." But instead of saying the same back, she goes, No, I really want to go out with you one more time before you leave." I went to college out of state. This, of course, made me happy, and we set a time for a second date. The day of this date comes, and I text her to make sure we're still good for that evening. No response. I text her one more time like an hour before, and still nothing. At this point, I gave up. Packed my things and went back to my parents' place since I had finished all my finals. A couple months later, I texted her, just checking in on her health stuff. After all, we were still friends. To which she immediately responded, "New phone, who dis?" And upon telling her my name, no response. Years later, I saw her again, except this time, engaged to another guy. She saw me and acted like nothing had happened and enthusiastically greeted me. I just politely said hi and kept walking. To this day, I have no clue what happened. I only assumed she was talking to this other guy at this time and decided to go with him over me, but they didn't start dating until like 6 months after the thing between her and I. Story 22. My sophomore year of high school, I started dating a girl whom I met through a mutual friend. She was sort of my first legit girlfriend. We were both busy all the time with sports, but this one weekend my family went on a trip to a campground that we used to go to every summer, and she came with us. Leading up to this weekend, things were pretty good. Not great, I suppose, but I didn't notice any signs that things were going poorly. Anyway, on the first or second night there, I loaded up the bed of my dad's pickup truck with blankets and pillows and drove us out to the middle of a field so that we could hang out and look at the stars. I was trying to be cute and romantic, but she was being strangely aloof and very quiet. At one point, she pulled out her phone and just messed around on that for most of the time. After a while, I suggested we go back to the camper and call it a night. When we got back, she went right to the room that we gave her and shut me out. So I passed some time before going to bed by scrolling through Twitter, and lo and behold, I come across a tweet from her saying, "You're not cute, #stop," with a timestamp as the exact time we were out in that field. Well, I asked her about this, and she gave me a very unconvincing excuse that she was referring to some unknown friend of hers. So I left it at that and moved on. The next day, we took a boat that my dad got out into the water, and the whole time she sat by herself off to the side and hardly even looked my way. Super uncomfortable, especially with my parents being right there. Then, an hour or two into the ride, the boat broke down, and we had to get towed back to the dock. My mom drove us home later that day. Dad drove separately, and the whole ride she had headphones in and was reading a book, very clearly ignoring me as much as possible. We dropped her off at her house, talked with her mom a bit, and went our own ways. That following Tuesday, she texted me saying we needed to talk, and obviously I knew what was coming next. She broke up with me over text, gave some lame reasoning, and that was that. I was so angry and handled it extremely poorly, but I'll never forget that experience. Story 23. Went on a wonderful day with this woman back in college. We seemed to vibe well. Even met her grandmother when she had to stop over in the middle of the date, and she seemed to like me. She gave me a nice long goodbye kiss at the end of the night and invited me to her roommate's house party the next day. I get to the party, and literally the whole night she's avoiding me. Her younger brother told me she's not interested, and the whole time I'm wondering why when our date went so well and it seemed like we were getting along. Called me the next day and basically said she didn't want to be pressured into intimacy with someone she just wanted to be friends with. Really? I'm sorry, but no, I never pressured or even talked to her about intimacy. We made out once after our date that I really enjoyed, and I wanted to go to the party to better connect with her. Naturally, that might lead to that, but nowhere in this equation did I pressure her nor plan to pressure her because honestly, I just wanted a girlfriend. So if we did end up in her room and she told me she didn't want to sleep with me, sure, I might be a little disappointed, but I would have gone to sleep and left it at that. I just felt so embarrassed because it made me feel like I was some kind of bad person who wasn't worth anyone's affection. Oh, and also, I later found out I was a rebound after she broke up with my brother's friend, who ended it with her because he was secretly not straight. Seriously? She could have just been honest from the start. Would have made things way better. Also, random facts, I ended up sleeping in a different bed with a cop. Nothing saucy, but still, good mashup for sure. Story 24. I got along right away. We talked every day about anything and everything. I hadn't been that happy in years. I'd normally be the one to start the conversation, but sometimes she would if she woke up before me. We'd hang out at the local bar where we met mostly. I would watch her dog sometimes as she worked a double. We didn't do anything more than kiss, and eventually she said she wasn't ready to be more than friends, but would be soon. I told her I liked her, and that I would wait, but to tell me if her feelings changed because I didn't want to get my hopes up. Turns out she was dating her 40-year-old non-stray boss. I didn't find out for 3 months while I was still seeing her, and talking every day and doing things for her I thought would help win her over. They broke up, and while things were going great for me, her boss said she wanted to fix things. Well, I found out they broke up again. We kept talking until I decided to not text first and see if she would start the conversation. A week went by and nothing. I texted her about it, and she said she stopped talking because I wasn't getting the hint she doesn't feel about me the same way. She still wants to be friends, but I want more. I plan on saying I can't be her friend in the coming days. Story 25. Late to the party. Finally, something that I can relate to. I'm on mobile, so I'm going to try to make this short. I met this girl at college who lived in the same hall as me. My roommate and I could tell that she had a crush on me. My roommate and I would hang out together a lot, but whenever we saw her, she would specifically ask for me to come sit next to her. She asked about my day, would ask me to come study with her, etc. I thought she was pretty cute, so I gave it a try. There was just one issue. I'm a cross-gender guy. We had not even gone on one date yet, so I thought I'd just get it out of the way and tell her. After that, she added me to like 10 people in the hall without my consent. Luckily, they were cool with it, but still. I tried asking her out after that still, and she kept ghosting me multiple times. After a few weeks or so of avoiding her, she asked me out. I was going to visit my family that weekend, so I told her no, and she went crazy on me for no reason. A few weeks later, I was riding in a car to Walmart with my friends when she asked to come. The car was tight, and she was sitting right next to me. I literally did not talk to her. And when we got back, she accused me of mistreating her. Thankfully, I had witnesses who called out on her lies and didn't believe her one bit. After that, I blocked her and everything and avoided her as much as possible. I guess being cross-gender made me dodge that. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.